Let's talk about traffic in China, and it can be a bit intimidating, scary, and a bit of a culture shock as well. And why is this the case? Let's talk about it. But first, a little disclaimer. I'm talking about my personal experience here as a European coming to China and experiencing mostly the traffic and traffic jams and behavior here in a very large city. 32 million people live here in the city in Chongqing. I have a bit of experience also seeing the traffic in Chengdu. It was not as bad as it is here in Chongqing because a lot more people living here and a lot more people are doing things that are, let's say, questionable on the street, at least for a European kind of view. Where do we start with this? Maybe we start with the car traffic first, because like trains and so on is not so interesting there. So I mainly focus on car traffic there and what happens on the streets of Chongqing when it comes to driving cars and so on. So the first thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of honking involved. And I noticed later on that it is not honking just because you are waiting there and in the traffic or something like this. It is honking as form of communication, some would say. So I see a lot of people honking when they turn in a very narrow alleyway or something like this, just to inform someone that's coming from the opposite, because there's no mirror hanging that helps you to see maybe the opposite traffic coming in, to inform them, hey, I'm coming, be careful, I'm coming. And the same goes then for other things, like for example, I want to overtake a big truck that might go to your lane. So you honk before you overtake him so that he knows, there's a car, and he's not like going there. At least this is what I noticed so far on the streets of Chongqing, which is first of all a little bit weird from European perspective, where you learn honking as one of the last resorts that you should take when really something is going on. But here it is a form of communication somehow already. And this also results in, I think, cars having special kinds of horns installed, because they're not having the same kind of sound that they make in Europe, where it's like a very deep, rumbly, loud kind of horn. Here it is a bit more subtle kind of horn, so they, I think, either install different horns here, or they make them more subtle because it shouldn't be either too loud. One thing. The other thing is like they're using them way more, so that the horns don't break so quickly. They make them a little bit more subtle. This is at least my interpretation of this. So this is the first thing that you will notice when coming to China. The other thing is that for some European countries maybe it's also not so common, but especially as a German it's very uncommon, is the turning lights. Turning signals are very rarely used when switching lanes. You see it like cars driving like left, right, different lanes, switching lanes. Sometimes because the streets in Chongqing especially are very, very large and huge, 5 lanes in one direction, sometimes 4 lanes at least minimum. And they're just like driving like crazy, left, right, without turning on the turning light. It's not... Most people, it doesn't say that all people are not turning on the turning lights. It just says that generalization, what I see is like occasionally they're turning on the turning lights, mostly switching lanes not. Where they turn on the turning lights is when they really have to turn, really take a turn, like going into a different street. Then mostly they are doing this, but not always. So, and the crazy thing about all of this is like, as Europeans, this would like get on our nerves. This would make us really very pulsating with hate and pulsating with street rage. But here it is a common thing, so people are adapted to it already, so we don't have this road rage kind of mentality. At least I don't see it so much within the people. But what is clear that when it comes to traffic in general, and especially car traffic, then cars are first-class citizens. Bikes, second-class citizens, and then third or fourth-class citizens, because those little bikes with cargo and so on, also in between, are the pedestrians. So pedestrians are the ones who have to rush when there's a green light, because the green light is a countdown, which is quite nice on the lights. But the green lights are like very, very fast. So if you are an elderly person or so on, you can barely make it through the green light, eventually need some help, or you just have to cross when it is red already because you just walked halfway when it was green. Such things. Talking about the lights, like I said, there are nice little countdowns that show you how long one light will be staying red, how long one light will be staying green. And the cool thing is here they have this connected also with their map application. So on your phone, for example, if you're navigating via GPS app or a map app on your phone, it will also show you the countdown and remind you with acoustics, either talking to you, telling you just be prepared, in 5 seconds it's going to get green there, such things, which is quite nice, and something that I find very unique. At least I didn't see it anywhere else in the world before. And I think also their navigation system is quite sophisticated. It has to be, especially in Chongqing, because of so many lanes, that it's always showing you on which lane you are really driving, and it's telling you when to switch lanes beforehand, before you have to like go to a big crossing and then you have to turn somewhere. Talking about turning, it's quite fascinating, and I think also quite unique in the world that if you turn right, wherever you, because they have normal kind of traffic, so we're driving on the right and on the left there's the traffic in the other direction. When you want to turn right, you mostly can just drive. You don't have to take a look at, and people don't do it. They don't take a look at the left, they just drive. And the traffic that's coming from the left has to take into account that someone might drive out whenever he wants to from your right and has then the privilege, no matter if the lights are there or not. There are just barely, I saw once or twice, a light for people who want to turn right, and of course they have to then also wait and stop at the light when it's red. But that also means that when pedestrians have green, they might also have to be careful, because a car that wants to go right can just go right. Everyone else is standing there because they have to go either left or straight, but the one who wants to go right can also like drive right. It can right in front of you drive and turn right without really looking at the pedestrians. And sadly, most people are not looking really at pedestrians, just driving. So the pedestrians have to be careful not to be driven over. And the same goes like for the traffic that goes straight and then someone comes from the right. It's like common thing here. And this is why probably also when it's not so easy to, or it's not allowed basically, even with an international driver's license, to drive in China, because the rules and the way of how things work here, the culture of driving is so much different than in other countries. That is, I think, the best way, otherwise you might be a nuisance for the traffic here in China. And the same way, I think it should be also that Chinese people should have some kind of guidance when they're driving outside of their country, because nope, turning right always in different countries doesn't mean you don't have to look to the left, because this might end up in disaster when the truck is driving and driving through your car then with your family. That sadly happened a few times already. So this is something that you have to keep in mind here. Other things that I noticed that are quite interesting. We have highways here. I was driving on highway as well. I was driven by someone on the highway here. And what they have is toll stations. So I remember, I think the first time I came here to China, they were still operated by humans. So they were little boxes and you had to like stop, pay something to use the highway. Nowadays they have still those boxes, but there's no human inside anymore, because they have cameras that are scanning the license plate, and you can then have this automatically deducted from, I think I already told you once about a yearly plan or something like this. Maybe it's wrong. They automatically deduct it based on your license plate and deduct the money that they need for driving on the highway, which is, I think, kind of a clever idea to do this. Don't like tolls for highways anyway, but in order to maintain them, probably so many people here, they need to have this. But at least they have those toll stations there, and usually what they do is like they have like 3 lanes maybe of highway in one direction, and then when you come to a toll station, when you want to drive on the highway, it is like opening up to, I don't know, 10, 15 lanes, something like this. So you have enough possibilities for cars pass through, and then later on it's like compressing again to like those 3, 4, 5 lanes in one direction. So this is how toll stations work. What I quite find also fascinating is, especially in the streets, is that there are lots of security cameras and speed cameras as well. But in contrast to Germany and many other countries in Europe, they only photograph you when you are driving, when you're speeding. So when you're driving too fast. Here, every car is photographed. So you notice that sometimes cars are passing by and it's like flashing, 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 flashing. Every car that's passing by gets a nice little photo. At least it's flashing. I'm not sure if they really take a photo there or it's just flashing to warn the driver, be careful, don't drive too fast. I'm not so sure about this, but at least it is kind of a bit of distracting, I would say, if I would have to drive there and it's like flashing every second when I'm driving a few 100 meters or so on, would be a bit distracting for me. Anyway, quite of normal here and common, which is yeah, quite fascinating. And I think these concludes almost all the experiences that I had when it comes to how traffic works here and what kind of a different traffic culture and a bit of a culture shock it is to see how traffic works here. The other culture shock comes when it comes to what we know as yeah, security for crashes and so on. Like it's normal to put a seatbelt on since like, I don't know, 40, 50 years already in Europe. But here it's quite uncommon still and see a lot of people not putting a seatbelt on. So much so that they have also some big signs, buckle up, something like this, to remind people to really put seatbelts on. Because I think it is mandatory, at least for the people sitting in the front nowadays, to put a seatbelt on. For the back, when the first time I arrived here in China, there were some cars, especially taxis that we took, they didn't even have seat belts there. Nowadays it's not anymore the case, and I'm not sure if it's mandatory. I don't think it is mandatory yet, but I see a lot of people not having seat belts on, especially when sitting on the back. And what worries me more is like seeing little kids transported not in a normal, or babies even transported not in what I consider normal kind of special seat for babies. They're just holding on the lap without seatbelt on. Sometimes I saw mothers 2, 3, 4 times already. Mothers just putting their child on their lap while driving. Little babies, kids, 1, 2, 3 years maybe old. It's a bit concerning for me, especially seeing all the traffic and how people are dealing with it. But on the other hand, I can stay positive. It's like my 4th or 5th visit now in China here. I only saw one traffic accident. It was a minor one where a little bit of scratches on a car or something like this. So not a biggie here. But on the other hand, I cannot rule out with this like kind of lax kind of security rules there or protection that they give. A major accident might happen, and those accidents might end up fatal for some people. And what worries me is especially like the culture of not like buckling up and having special seat for kids. Like if you take a taxi, for example, with a little baby or some, we did it. We buckled her up, of course, like because there's no special seat for kids or babies. We buckled her up. You can, of course, buy special seats for babies and kids, but in a taxi you usually don't have this, and I don't think you can order one with a kid's seat or baby seat on it. So you have to keep that in mind. And yeah, scooters driving around, also people without helmets, of course, and having their kids sometimes in front or in back without helmets, just like a cappy or something like this on. Also common. Yeah, it's a different culture that shocked me personally, because I think China has modernized itself very much, also with the traffic, and have this traffic light system with the countdown, which I find very, very cool. On one hand, on the other hand, in terms of security and protection for when driving and participating in traffic, I find it a bit backwards there. So it's my perspective, because it's like, it's clear if you fall even on a little bike 30 kilometers per hour driving, you might hurt, you might have like scratches, you might break your bones as an adult, but as a kid, when you fall with softer bones, maybe definitely broken. So not wearing a helmet, not having a seatbelt on and such things. I think they're slowly going there. I think they're protecting themselves more. People are getting more aware of those kinds of things. But it's something that you have to notice, that I'm telling you what I saw here in China. It might be not in every city, like I said. I have this like very concentrated view just on Chongqing, where we're passing by. And yeah, this is my maybe a bit longer kind of view on traffic here in China, specifically Chongqing. What is your experience? If you have a different experience than I had, write it down in the comment section. That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye.